Hi, this is Kristen Carroll, and I'm glad you could join me for the final podcast about Tirkandi Inaburra. This third podcast will conclude our look into this unique cultural and development centre for young Wiradjuri boys. In the first two podcasts, we heard about how the centre was established and the programs it employs to empower these young men. We heard about some of the challenges, but also some of the great partnerships Tirkandi shares with other NGOs and services. It is fitting that we finish this series by listening to the staff as they talk about some of the achievements of their previous students. But I'm sure that, like me, you're also very keen to hear from the boys themselves, to hear them tell you in their own words what this cultural development centre means to them and what impact it has had on their lives. So we'll do just that. However, first up, I'm going to hand things over to the staff.
I just remember one fella from Tumut who came from a large family, and he was one of the earlier boys that he was struggling at the start, and his parents were under pressure to move on with daily things, and he actually became a provider for the family, and he actually did move out of the home and still provided for his family, and he found a job which was earning him good money, and he was doing a course. There's quite a lot of those stories, but I don't know, because it was one of the first ones, it was probably the best one, I guess, because it was one of the first ones that I heard, so yeah.
You've got kids that are still going to school, that are in year 10, 11 or 12, and I mean, to me that's, we're doing okay. There's kids, we've had a boy that was a participant here. He come back and he was actually working as a youth worker for a while. So, I mean, when you see that sort of thing happening, I mean, it just makes you feel good inside.
A young boy, or young man now, he's currently going to uni. He's in his last year at uni. He's got his brand new car. And this kid has come in from living in a refuge, and it's just so good to see where he's at now. He's a proud young man, always calls back here to see how we're going and just to update us with what's going on in his life. I've heard of other young men too who are working every day, owning their own houses. Yeah.
Probably 90% of the boys that do leave Tirkandi I'm pretty proud of, because their retention rate at school is very good. We've had a guy that came through a few years ago. He's actually at uni. He actually came to Tirkandi from a women's refuge where he was staying with his mother. And yeah, he was a very smart kid, and Tirkandi set him on the right path. He spent a couple of terms here, and I think the biggest thing is the retention rate at school, the success rate that we have had, and also the boys. Probably the last couple of years, we've had a lot of phone calls from the ex-participants, just ringing up to say g'day or calling in with their parents on their way past on holiday. So that's very rewarding to find out what they're up to and where they are and how successful they're becoming at school, and holding that retention rate to a high standard.
One young man who recently graduated from the Cultural Development Centre came back to meet with me and discuss his experiences. This young man came to Tirkandi with one set of behaviours and attitudes, and walked out the other side with another set that has steered him in a new direction and left him much more content in his life. Here's what he had to say. Do you remember how you felt when you first came to Tirkandi?
I felt nervous but excited at the same time.
So why were you nervous?
I was nervous because I didn't know what it was going to be like, if I would like it or not.
What was it like for you?
It was good, it changed me a lot.
Ian told me that he was really proud of the change in you during your time at Tirkandi. What do you think the changes were that happened for you?
I learned to respect more people and myself, and how to talk to people differently and control my anger.
And why was that important for you?
Because it wasn't really working at home. I was getting into trouble with the police and at school and all that, but when I went back home it was heaps good. I got along with everyone.
How did the change happen? Do you remember there being a specific time?
Yeah, about halfway through the term I went get up and rally Uncle Dave, but I clicked on and said I shouldn't be doing that. I should be talking about it and all that.
And so that was a moment you really remember where you just made a definite decision.
Yeah.
And how did you feel when you made that decision?
Yeah, I felt good about myself.
How has your time at Tirkandi impacted on your life?
Yeah, it's impacted a lot. I've got along with a lot more people and like got a case of positive compliments and all that in life.
Is there anything about your life now that you feel is better because of having spent time here? Like anything specifically that's...
Oh, at school, I never used to go. I always used to wag and all that, but now I go every day and get along with all the teachers, and yeah, I haven't missed a class since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do the teachers comment on the change?
Yeah, they're getting along heaps good with me.
Are there any of your friends or younger boys or girls back home that you feel like you've become a role model for? Like you feel like you might have helped?
Yeah, a couple of my little cousins, they're like been getting in trouble and all that. I've been telling them like to snap out and all that, and they've been listening. Yeah.
So how does that make you feel?
Yeah, it makes me feel good of myself.
Would you recommend other young Aboriginal men come to Tirkandi?
Yeah, it'll be heaps good. Like for people that are mucking up and that, yeah, they should come.
And very last question is, if you were to give advice to non-Aboriginal people about how to work better with Aboriginal people and Aboriginal services, what would you say to those people?
It'll be the way you speak to young Aboriginal kids, because yeah, you speak to them right and they'll listen to you and they'll follow you.
During my visit to Tirkandi, there was a group of boys entering their final few weeks of their school term at the centre. So this was the perfect time for me to ask them about what aspects of the program they found particularly valuable.
I like learning about everything, like the programs. I like learning about my culture.
I like dancing because when I go back, there's not many people that actually do dancing, and when I go back out into my community, I want to teach the younger kids how to dance and stuff. This one youth worker got me into the paper for my art and stuff, and I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, and just keep learning about the culture and stuff.
So clearly, just like the staff at Tirkandi, the boys also really valued the opportunity to be able to learn, especially about their own culture. For some of the young men who come to Tirkandi, this centre represents one of the first times in their lives where they've had the right set of circumstances to allow them to devote time to learn not just in a school sense, but also to learn about their culture. Indeed, the words Tirkandi Inaburra in Wiradjuri means learning to live their dream. When asked what they dream about doing in the future, this is what some of the boys had to say.
Well, be a police officer, fireman, get a good job. We'll get a job, go to TAFE University, or if not, I'd love to be a mechanic in the army.
Get a good job and be a footy player.
Yeah, good job.
Great job and an Olympic person.
Any particular sport?
Running.
Good job and cricket player.
Okay.
And swimming.
When a child is given a structured environment, is treated with respect, and given room to develop a sense of pride in themselves, they will learn to dream of a future they deserve and can achieve. Tirkandi clearly is helping these young men to learn to do just that. I next asked the boys if they woke up to a perfect world tomorrow, what would it look like for them? And here's how they responded.
A nice mansion, waking up and having pet orangutan.
Pet orangutan?
Yeah, they're pretty.
You watch the
documentary of them. Waking up, living the dream.
Waking up to me beautiful kids.
Waking up to a beautiful wife sitting next to you.
The accounts you have heard from both the staff and the boys illustrate the positive impact this culturally based residential program has in minimising future contact with juvenile justice. The sense of cultural pride and knowledge it instills, and the greater confidence it gives these young men to go into the world and pursue a life where they can use their strengths and skills to follow their dreams. So let's conclude by hearing from Community Care Coordinator Hank Lyons and one of the boys summarise what I think this program is all about.
I mean, like I said, some of these boys, when they come to us, it's got no idea about authority. You know, I mean, the thing is, once they leave here, I mean, and it makes you feel good too. When they leave here, they actually don't want to leave. They're crying when they leave, you know, and it's just showing us that they've opened up a little bit and they understand about there's nothing wrong with crying and there's nothing wrong with having a go at anything. And that's something we like to try and get through to them, is have a go. You know, you can't fail if you're having a go.
It's the best thing that's ever happened to me.
I would like to sincerely thank all the staff, Elder Heather Edwards, and the boys at Tirkandi Inaburra for their time and hospitality during the recording of this podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Tirkandi, there are links to their website on the NGO Learning Centre. There are a number of related resources located on the NGO Learning Centre to support further learning should you be interested in undertaking your own research about some of the themes raised in this podcast.